everybody. I'm really happy to be here today. Thank you for the opportunity. Is Bitcoin a dirty coin? This is a question that I've been asking myself as a Bitcoiner for 4 years, and way more intensely for the last year and a half as I've been producing and directing the documentary Dirty Coin, which is a documentary about the Bitcoin mining industry. Let's start with what is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a peer-to-peer electronic cash system, right? As said by Satoshi Nakamoto. But this is a room full of Bitcoiners, so I will skip through this part very quickly. What is cash? What is cash? He says electronic cash. Let's look at cash. Cash, if we are having a transaction, oh, I get to see it there. Oh, that's good. Only 2 people get to find out about the transaction, and we don't need to know anything about each other in order to have that transaction be valid, right? We trust the money. If I give you $20 for your purse, I don't need to know where you live. I don't need to know your criminal history. You don't need to know mine. We both accept that the dollar is worth something, and then we can transact. Now, with digital payments, the reality is, who knows how many people are actually finding out about this transaction. So it's not like cash. It's not electronic cash to use the cash in your debit card. Because your bank finds out about it, their bank, the vendor that's selling you the thing, they find out who you are. The payment systems, the payment rails, your wife, your husband, when they see the record of everything that was spent, everybody gets to see, not to mention all of the different world intelligence agencies out there, right? So everything that you do is broadcasted to the world. Now, this is something that the cypherpunks were concerned about. It was privacy. How can I choose what of myself I am going to divulge to the world when more and more of our lives happens online? How can I control my privacy? Satoshi Nakamoto, obviously, or obviously only in this crowd, he released the white paper in the Cypherpunk newsletter because this was something that people have been trying to do for a very, very long time, is to create this digital cash, this anonymous thing that we can use, that we can trust, that we can use to transact with each other without needing to know where you are, or if the country that you're in happens to be at war or not friendly to the country that I'm in. This is a way we wanted to be able to transact freely on the internet anonymously. And so in 2008, Satoshi was able to basically pair a lot of other technologies to come up with Bitcoin, and Bitcoin worked. Bitcoin is not just electronic cash. You can also, in person, it's not just for internet purchases. In person, you can go up to somebody and you can just pay for something in Bitcoin, and it is still that peer-to-peer cash system where we are trusting that I am sending you my Bitcoin, it is yours now. So even if it's in person, it doesn't need to be an internet transaction where we don't see each other across the world. Even in person, there is a value to having not everybody in the world know what you're spending your money on. Now, this is also what occurred with Bitcoin. And Silk Road was one of the first use cases for Bitcoin actually delivering on its promise of being a money that can be used anonymously online. Now, people did what people do. People did what people do, especially with cash. People buy drugs with cash. People do things that they want to keep private with cash. Now, they also do many great things that you don't necessarily want to be traced. That gets done with cash as well. What happens with the cash is kind of irrelevant to the cash itself. How people use Bitcoin is kind of irrelevant to Bitcoin itself. All right, a little bit about me. I am a filmmaker. I've been a filmmaker for 13 years, and I have a production company. Started in Silicon Valley. I did a lot of work for a lot of the cloud companies until I was snatched by Google Cloud, and I was a filmmaker for them. And I was just intrigued by how high-powered computing or high-performance computing, data centers, the cloud, and increasingly how the the internet world was going to look like in the physical world. And so I did a lot of films with them. It was a fantastic career, but I felt like I needed to release from the shackles of having a call to action at the end of all of my films, and I wanted to just not do that anymore. And so I have been in Bitcoin for a while. I like to talk about Bitcoin. This is me in Puerto Rico. I volunteer my time. I don't have a sponsors for selling Bitcoin or wallets or anything. I just wanted to make sure that as the crypto conversation got bigger and bigger in Puerto Rico, that people weren't just thinking that Bitcoin equaled Doge, equaled Ethereum, equaled everything else. I wanted to be able to have a proper conversation about what it is that we were really talking about, and I never got into Bitcoin because of number go up. It was never, actually, that's not true. First time I got into Bitcoin, that's why. But then what got me to stay was definitely not thinking that I was going to get rich off it. I just thought it was absolutely groundbreaking that we could have money without borders and that we could separate money from state. What's interesting is that as I'm talking about Bitcoin, there's all these conflicting headlines. It's like Tesla will no longer accept Bitcoin because it's bad for the environment. China bans Bitcoin because it's bad for the environment. 100,000 Cubans are using crypto Bitcoin to go around sanctions. Troy is saying that Bitcoin is going to save the world. I mean, it's very, very conflicting. And so I decided not to trust, but to verify and to create a documentary for the mainstream audience to basically show them what this industry is, what it's doing, and how all of that money that's going into energy, it's going into energy infrastructure, and it's having ripple effects in the communities where big mining is occurring, and small mining too. In the journey took us to 4 different continents. So there's Finland, Malawi, DC, Paraguay, and I got to visit a lot of different locations, which was really cool. Got to see how they're mining. In Finland, they're repurposing the heat. Malawi, gridless is being the anchor tenant for their microgrid. And so people are having electricity for the first time. We actually recorded a house getting electricity for the very first time ever, thanks to gridless moving in. We interviewed policymakers, so for example, Cynthia Lummis, and I got to talk to her more about the energy side of it all. So it's a film specifically about the energy part of mining. I got to talk to really, really smart people, way smarter than me. I am behind on my time. This is where I was supposed to play the teaser, but let's just leave it until the very end, okay? Look, the reality is that 52% of the electricity that mining consumes is renewable, comes from renewable sources, which is one of the highest industries that consumes renewables in existence. We know that the University of Cambridge is not taking into account flare gas. They're not taking into account off-grid mining, and some of their studies are also old. We're not taking into account that Bitcoin does not consume as much as most industries, and we're not hearing that those industries consume more electricity than, countries, right? So Bitcoin is being unfairly targeted, but this is not a facts issue. This is a narrative one. And so even things like Lightning are also reducing the energy consumption per transaction of Bitcoin as well. So the way that I see it is Bitcoin mining is helping fund countries out of energy poverty. And I've seen it with my own eyes. Again, I'm not trusting. I went and I saw it myself. And I'm speaking with people that are currently doing this. So it's not something that we can ignore, because Bitcoin mining is a real solution for real problems that we have with our electrical grid. Those countries like us that are lucky enough to have a grid, and they're helping fund new grids in countries that don't have it. So Bitcoin doesn't just give people access to an asset that makes them be able to compete in the world. It's also giving them the electrical infrastructure that they are going to need as well. So it's really providing both things. It's giving them the access and it's giving them the means to that. So this is, in my opinion, something worth highlighting, and that's what we talk about in the film. We're currently in production, and we're going to be done with the film by November. and showing it at different conferences. We're going to be doing different things there. So please follow us and follow our journey. And I appreciate your time. Unfortunately, I cannot play the teaser, but I had told Michael not to play it earlier because I wanted to play it here. So we're just going to have to play it later unless I do have an extra 2 minutes. Maybe. Can I get the mob to bend the arm of anybody for an extra 2 minutes? Yay!
When I'm talking about flexible load and even data centers, everybody's fine. And the moment I say the word Bitcoin, conversation's over.
By one estimate, annual global Bitcoin mining uses more electricity than the entire nation of the Netherlands.
Bitcoin in general is wasteful by design.
One Bitcoin transaction is equal to throwing away 2 iPhones.
Burns as much electricity as the country of Argentina.
It's wrecking their grid.
Doesn't make any sense.
It's a giant pyramid scheme.
Bitcoin mining does consume a lot of power. It's the reality of it, but it's not necessarily a bad thing.
A lot of facilities, mining rigs and facilities, will attach themselves to energy infrastructures that have basically unused energy.
What if you turn that flared gas into another product that you could sell?
We're not really looking at the problem in totality.
The energy that we're sourcing is from green, renewable resources.
Why wouldn't we want to produce that kind of energy for a new financial system that creates freedom, transparency, independence?
We have the flexibility to shut off when the grid demands additional capacity of power. That flexibility is a very unique property to Bitcoin mining.
So if we compare one Bitcoin transaction to 100,000 Visa transactions, Bitcoin will still require up to 10 times more electrical energy per transaction.
I think we're at an incredibly pivotal moment right now in the evolution of Bitcoin mining.
The next wave of Bitcoin adoption comes from the energy companies.
Bitcoin and the changes that it implies will not just be rainbows and unicorns, because we're replacing a system that has a lot of debt built up. And I don't just mean monetary debt, but moral and ecological debt.
The most cost-effective ways of generating power to power Bitcoin mining are actually solving key energy infrastructural challenges.
So we've got a stigma attached to Bitcoin that's actually standing in the way of us doing what we need to do to make the transition to a decarbonized economy.